Welcome to BlØØdborne, History's Vampires, a series of real stories on one of my favorite subjects, the immortal beings famous for stalking in the night. If you've been here before, you already know I am Hyde, and tonight we're diving into the first part of history regarding vampires on the Northern American mainland, starting in New England. To begin with, I'd like to highlight a common theme that we see in a lot of research in regard to vampire stories throughout the years, particularly in the 18th and 19th century. Just like with the last episode, the hysteric fear that took over New England in the 19th century is also commonly attributed to the prevalence of consumption, a disease we now call tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is an airborne disease caused by bacteria that commonly affects the lungs. Symptoms can include things like fatigue, weight loss, fever, night sweats, and coughing, including coughing up blood. Does any of that sound familiar? Well, it should. With a lot of vampire-related stories, victims often experience one or most of these symptoms. Fever can also create delirium and have a negative effect on sleep. And because tuberculosis is airborne, anyone in close contact with people later believed to be real vampires likely also would have been affected. So with all of that in mind, it's easy to see how widespread the fear and belief in what we just consider folklore today would have gone. And while documentation wasn't always the first thought people had for a commonly held superstition or belief, there are at least 7 famous cases involving exhumation and belief in vampirism of past loved ones in New England alone. Those being Rachel Burton, an unnamed resident of Ipswich, New Hampshire, Samuel Saladay, Frederick Ransom, John Barber, one case only named an anonymous sibling, and the most recent one, Mercy Brown. Tonight, we'll cover Rachel Burton, also known as the Manchester Vampire. Rachel Harris Burton was the first wife of Captain Burton in Manchester, Vermont. She's described as a fine, beautiful, healthy girl of 20 years who shortly after their marriage died of consumption in 1792. Now, going back to the bit about tuberculosis, people back then had it partly right. They knew the disease was what was killing people, but they had it wrong insofar as they believed it was caused by vampires and not bacteria. With that bit of information to keep in mind, the story goes on to say that Captain Burton remarried, and shortly after that, the new wife, Huldah Powell, was also stricken with consumption. Believing that Rachel had become a demon vampire due to the rise in fear amongst the locals regarding vampirism, they exhumed her body and burned it. Judge John S. Pettibone described the event in a manuscript later published to Proceedings of the Vermont Historical Society, December 1930. He begins with how they removed the remains of her organs, burned them to ash on a local forge, and cites that anywhere from 500 to 1,000 people were present for this ritual-like attempt to sacrifice the vampire, for which they believed was feeding off of the captain's second wife. It should be noted that Huldah died in 1793 as a result of consumption anyway, and if you're thinking about taking a road trip through history, one can visit the graves in Manchester, Vermont. With that, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode, and you will join us on episode 3 as we start with the next of these cases and make our way forward through history. If you guys are enjoying this content and you would like to see more, please make sure you click that subscribe button, click the like and the notification bell so you get notified anytime we upload videos. And if you want to go further and have your name posted in the credits at the end of this video, as well as join our community on Patreon and Discord that we call the Baby Bats, please make sure to check out patreon.com/BokuWaHyde so you can not only be part of this family, but help us continue creating these episodes. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you guys on the Patreon and in the next episode.